Hey there, Colts fans. This is Nathan Brown, the Colts insider for the Indianapolis Star, joined, of course, by my co-host and co-worker on the beat, Joel A. Erickson. We're here for a midweek podcast on Colts Cover 2 podcast to chat a little bit about Colts responding to that tough loss on Sunday to the Kansas City Chiefs. A little bit more about Daniel Jones's fibula injury that we haven't to learn a whole lot of details about, but we'll break down and discuss, I'm sure. And of course, getting prepared for this Houston defense coming to a town, a stretch of 4 divisional games over the next 6 that really will, in lots of ways, I think, decide this AFC South race, a race that the Colts have not finished on top of since 2014. So to break everything down, of course, Joel, a big topic of conversation today at the Colts facility was this team responding to that loss on Sunday. Well, of course, where they led 20-9 in the fourth quarter, finished with 4 3-and-out drives, saw some worrying trends continue with Daniel Jones and the offense not being able to, pull through when it mattered most there in that game, preparing to face a defense that Shane Steichen called definitively the best in the league here on Sunday at home at Lucas Oil Stadium. What was your biggest takeaway on just how you feel like this team is moving on from, not forgetting about, but still moving on from Sunday's loss?
Yeah, I think one of the things is just that online, if you're on, I guess you are online if you're watching this or listening to this. But if you're on Colts online, we'll call it Colts online, so we make sure we get all the social media. It just the overarching response I've gotten is like the sky is falling and it's time to jump off the bridge.
I mean, it is snowing outside right now, so
That is true. It is snowing outside. It is very, very windy on the day before Thanksgiving. The cold really showed up here.
glad we don't have to play football tomorrow in this weather.
Well, with the Colts, they never have to play football in this weather, which I think is wrong. Podcast listeners disagree with me. We'll just agree to disagree and move on. Anyway, but again, can you imagine if you were bringing the Houston Texans here to the cold and they were going to play in 30-degree weather? There's a part of me that really wants to have this argument again. But the Colts just they don't seem to feel the same way, and I think part of it is just like, yes, I understand the trends with Daniel Jones. I understand, they've lost 2 of their last 3. The division they have, I think part of it is that nothing has really gone their way from an other results standpoint. Like just about every result for the last couple of weeks has been not what the Colts want, to the point that the Jaguars are only a game back, the Texans are 2 games back. It feels like the rope is slipping a little bit on the outside. I think on the inside, they're looking at this more right now as kind of the normal ups and downs of the season, and that they're going to bounce back. That was kind of like the feel I got today was not a team in crisis the way some people seem to think it is. The feeling I got today was a team that still feels fairly confident about what they're doing.
No, I mean, I don't think this is probably a very large portion of the fan base, but there, as you and I have seen in our mentions on social media, comment sections, what have you, like I know there are some folks out there that legitimately think that the Colts should either presently be or be preparing to clean house. And that's certainly not the sentiment that you get from being inside that locker room and talking to Shane Steichen. And I think with a lot of hindsight, we'll be able to see at the end of the season, come January or February, just how worried we should have been if the Colts, win, say 3 out of the 4 of these remaining division games and maybe split with their 2 AFC West opponent or NFC West opponents. Let's see, that would have you finishing 12-5. Whatever they do in the playoffs, like I think that's a notable step for this franchise. If they completely fall apart and they lose 4 or 5 out of these last 6 games and are all of a sudden losing in the AFC South race, having to play a wild card game, going on the road in the first round when they were a team that was legitimately until probably this week in serious talks for that top seed in the AFC playoff race. Then maybe that was a little bit more deserved. I definitely don't think this team is feeling that way right now. This is a long season. This is a 17 game season. And unless you are the 1972 Miami Dolphins or the 2008 New England Patriots or 2007 New England Patriots, you're going to lose some of those. So I know the aspirations of this team and its team's fan base were very high a month ago or so. But I don't know that losing to the Kansas City Chiefs on the road is reason to begin starting to fire people. Yes, I know they led by double digits, and the way in which they lost was painful and frustrating. If they had just, been neck and neck with the Chiefs throughout the game and just kind of lost out in the fashion that say the Bills have in the playoffs, the Chiefs a handful of times on a last team to have possession of the ball or wins type of situation. Maybe the fan base is a little bit different and the reaction is a little bit different, but I definitely don't think that this is a locker room where folks are panicked or nervous or really putting a whole lot of stock into what happened 3 days ago at this point anyways.
Yeah, so I want to talk through this because there's going to be some caveats to what I'm about to say, and I can kind of see them coming already. But if you look at Shane Steichen's 3 years in Indianapolis so far, there have been a couple of really bad 3-game stretches. Like, for instance, in 2023, right after Richardson goes down against Tennessee, they win that game against Tennessee, but then they lose the curse game in Jacksonville. They lose the Browns in the ref game, if you guys remember that one. And then they lose a game to the Saints where they look terrible. Like, the Saints came in essentially with a bunch of rumors about how the whole team was in a mutiny, and they scored 38, and the offense couldn't do anything, and they scored 38 points. And, there wasn't a lot expected from that team, so I don't remember if the tenor was the same way. But you start looking at, like, those opponents and who they lost to. Like, I think we probably all were kind of like, this is going to be the way it is the rest of the season. Well, they turned it around. They won 4 games there. They lose a terrible one to Cincinnati. They then beat the Steelers, another terrible loss to the Atlanta Falcons, and they beat the Raiders. And they end up finishing 9-8. They play close in that last game against the Texans. It wasn't a playoff season, but I'm not trying to illustrate that the Colts are the 2023 Colts. What I'm trying to illustrate is that bad stretches in the NFL often have a way of turning around. 2024 last year, which, I mean, I think a season that anyone would agree with me, far more chaotic than this one. They dropped 3 games there to the Texans, Vikings, and Bills, where that's the tap-out game. That's Flacco starting for a couple of games. Just felt like utter turmoil. Now, and then they end up going 4-3 to end the season. Now, if what you're thinking right now while you're listening to this is, yeah, but they didn't have to play the same schedule that they play this year. That's very fair. That's very fair that they weren't playing the same schedule. Especially last year's team, their 4 wins are over teams that just honestly weren't that good. But I think part of it is in the NFL, a lot of times it feels like a team is letting go of the rope and kind of losing it, and it doesn't end up turning out that way. Now, I think we can get into this a little bit. Like, are there reasons to be nervous? Yeah, I understand being nervous, but sort of this season is over. They've blown it already. To me, it's a little bit surprising just because this is really the first moment of the season where it's felt like this at all. Just some of the, I think this is the other thing. I'll say this real quick. But like, I think one of the other things that's hard for you and I, and really anybody in our position is we only hear the most vocal of the fan base, and the most vocal of the fan base right now are the people who are upset. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I think we do get a skewed view of what people think of a certain team, or think of the Colts.
Yeah, the negativity is always the loudest position that you're going to hear. Even excitement or support is never going to be as loud or as passionate as folks who are frustrated. So I think there's definitely something to that. I very much agree with you that I don't think it is time to panic yet. I think there are some troubling trends when you also couple it with the schedule that they have remaining. I mean, every single team that they play is either, presently sitting in a playoff spot or on the fringe and is very much fighting for one. They play, of course, if you don't have the schedule in front of you, they play Houston twice, they play Jacksonville twice, and they play San Francisco 49ers at home and the Seattle Seahawks on the road in back-to-back weeks. We're kind of right in the middle of that chunk, basically. So this is the stretch where the AFC South title will be decided. I don't know off the top of my head who from that group that the Texans still play. I know they have played Jacksonville twice because Jacksonville has 4 games left in the division. They play the Titans twice and the Colts twice. So even though you have either a game or 2-game gap there, like this is still very much a battle. I don't know that we thought it was going to be so. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, it kind of felt like the Colts were very much in the driver's seat. But when you both look at some of the ups and downs of this team, the fact that they are clearly not invincible, and the fact that they play 4 games in the division, like this is very much up in the air. At what point, or what would happen? What would have to happen, say, either in this upcoming game against the Texans, or maybe you want to give it a 2 or a 3 game? Like, at what point, or what would have to happen for you to feel like the worry is truly warranted?
I think if they lose the next 2,
mm-hmm. That's kind of where I feel like.
I think if they lose the next 2, they're probably either tied or a game behind in the division. Then it really feels like things are slipping away. I think it's possible that they lose these 2 games. But at the same time, Houston's defense is really good. At the same time, like I think it really has to turn into like a really, really bad stretch. I'm still not sure that going 1-2 over these games is like an awful, awful stretch of games, especially just considering, some of the other things that people are going through who are contenders. But if you lose to Houston, you lose to Jacksonville, you let both of them back in it, instead of taking advantage of those. And granted, one of those games is a curse game, so that's part of the reason to be worried about that is the curse game. But like otherwise, I think you win one of them, you're at 9 wins, and you feel pretty. I feel like you feel pretty good about it. Just to get back to a point you were making. Houston has the least amount of agency over this division race because they've already played both Jacksonville and Tennessee twice.
Okay, there we go.
They've already played both of those teams twice. They were 3-1 of those games. Houston's entire, in terms of what they can take care of on their own, is they have to play the Colts. That's their whole chance. Whereas, like you mentioned, with Jacksonville and with Indianapolis, they both have 4 division games remaining to play here.
Yeah, I feel like I mean there's 3 ways that these next 2 games can go. You can either win them both, lose them both, or split them. I think if the Colts, and this is maybe just kind of how I think I will feel, and some of it depends on how the games go, obviously, and what the scores are, what have you. But I feel like if this team wins both of these games, and they're sitting headed to Seattle, they're sitting 10-3. I think it will. I'm imagining that it will feel like this team is still very much in the hunt. They are among the on the short list of the best teams in the AFC, which really doesn't have like a dead on like definitive favorite. I don't feel like. I'm sure everyone in their respective fan bases would feel different, but there are flawed teams across this AFC playoff picture. And so and maybe that's part of the frustration from Colts fans, is that this feels like you don't know when you're going to have another opportunity like this, where Josh Allen is on a flawed Bills team, Patrick Mahomes is on a flawed Chiefs team, Lamar Jackson is on a flawed Ravens team, Joe Burrow's unlikely to be in the playoff picture with the Cincinnati Bengals this year. The Broncos and the Patriots are still very young and inexperienced in lots of ways. So this does feel like a golden opportunity for a team like the Colts that has not been around, the top of the AFC for quite some time. So I feel like if they win both of these next two, I still think maybe they have a slight chance at still getting the AFC top seed. A lot has to happen. I mean, there's still 6 games to play for everyone. We're still really kind of at like the 2/3 mark of the season. So I don't know that we can really feel great about that as of yet. I think if they split these games, I think you're feeling maybe a little bit better. I still think this is a team where if you are taking a notable, like, major step forward, I think both of these games are games that you just have to win. Playing Houston at home, yes, they have the top defense in the league. I just think if you are going to be able to get in some way to where you want to go as a Indianapolis Colts team, and that's, winning a playoff game, maybe even winning 2 and getting to the championship game, I think you need to find a way to find an answer to this top defense in the league when you're playing at home. And I think you've got to, break that curse in Jacksonville. This isn't all too special Jacksonville team. They are on a major roller coaster ride. It feels almost like they can beat any team in the league and they can lose to any team in the league. And I feel like if you are the Colts team that I think we thought this team could be in the first 8 weeks of the season, I think you win both of these. And then, of course, as you mentioned, if you lose both of these, I think the panic button is getting smashed pretty hard. Because these are, like, ultimately, if you are going to be a team that is in the, conversation come mid-January, you're winning your winnable games, most of them, if not all of them. And these both feel like they are, as did really any of the last 3 ones that they lost, being, on the road at KC and Pittsburgh. So we'll see how those pan out. I think we'll have a lot more answers once we get 2 more weeks down the road. Hey, Joel, you need to unmute yourself.
I had to sneeze and I muted myself.
There we go.
I forgot to unmute myself. I think that if you win the game in Jacksonville, I think it would be difficult not to think of Daniel Jones as Lisan Al-Gaib, if I said that right, from Dune. Because you mentioned, like, this doesn't seem like a great Jacksonville team. Nathan, I have seen them lose to dumpster fire Jacksonville teams. Like, this is a Colts team that lost in Jacksonville to a team coached by Urban Meyer, or actually, I don't remember if that was Urban Meyer or that was Urban Meyer.
I mean, they definitely have lost to an Urban Meyer team because he coached more than 1 year, right?
No.
Oh, did he?
No.
Did he not even make it a season? I'm forgetting.
No, he full on Bobby Petrino'd. Well, not quite. He didn't leave in the middle of the night with a note, but he might as well have. I have seen this team lose the only game of the season that Jacksonville won, I believe.
Fair.
With the Colts team that went to the playoffs. I've seen another Colts team that went to the playoffs score no points in Jacksonville. Intellectually speaking, I know that if Daniel Jones wins that game, that it doesn't mean that he's like the long-term franchise quarterback. But vibes-wise, if they win that game in Jacksonville, I don't know. It'd be tough for me.
So you're saying he's going to pull a Jerry Maguire and walk into Chris Ballard's office the Monday after and say, "Show me the money"?
Yeah. And I think they might be like, "Yeah, you're right. You beat the curse. Whatever's wrong with that horrible northeastern Florida, or as I like to call it, southeastern Georgia soil, you beat it." Like, I've just, Nathan is new on the beat. He doesn't.
Yes,
fully,
I haven't lived
fully
a decade.
feel this, guys. It is inexplicable. It's truly inexplicable what has happened in that godforsaken stadium.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the real sign of if this team is for real, if they go and snap that. But yeah, I mean, those are, if the big thing to remember too, in terms of if we're at least assuming that the Colts do win the division, the games that you want to lose, if you're the Colts and you say, okay, we're going to win, we're going to lose one or two, are those games against Seattle and the 49ers. Because outside of losing a game, those won't factor into tiebreakers for teams outside the division. So say you're tied with the Broncos are a bad one because they have a head-to-head. Either you're in a three-way battle with teams with the same record among division winners, or say someone like the Patriots, who they didn't play this year. Those games in the conference are the second tiebreaker there. So those mean a big deal. These games against Jacksonville and Houston not only matter as conference games, but also as division games. And so they, I think a couple folks in the locker room today kind of phrase it like these matter twice in lots of ways. So another topic I know we want to hit on here that when we taped our pod last week, we were 24 hours from the start of the Daniel Jones calf/fibula saga. We talked about it a little bit on the podcast, probably on Sunday, but let's talk a little bit about what we know there with Daniel Jones. And it's frankly not a whole lot. This is, you start to wonder when teams are this secretive about the specifics of an injury outside of saying what they are obligated to say in terms of what body part is not 100%. And it is, we now know, is his fibula. We have asked them point blank whether it is a fracture, and they have said that they will not address that and do not plan to address that. So we don't really know exactly what this is. Daniel Jones has said that he does not anticipate it affecting him. There's maybe some questions about the veracity of that. Shane Steichen has said that he does not see it and has not experienced it affecting how they call plays for the game. We got a chance to talk to both of those guys. What would you say is maybe the biggest takeaway from talking to Shane and Daniel today in terms of the topic at hand, Daniel Jones's fibula?
I think the biggest thing, this is trying, you kind of set this up really well. We're trying to read between the lines here. Mm-hmm. And it's they're not the suit like, so I'll say this first. I have figured out Shane Steichen's methodology on injuries. He will tell us what the injury is if and only if they are out for the season. Mm-hmm. That we do not know what DeForest Buckner's specific injury is. Like stuff like a hamstring, it's either a tear or a bigger tear. Like, I know you can pull your hamstring, but as Ryan Kelly once famously told us, a pull is a tear. It's just a smaller tear. So there's some injuries that we can kind of infer it. We can't do it with others, but he just doesn't. This isn't something he does. He doesn't necessarily tell us what the injury is unless a player is out for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. Again, if we tried, I heard fibula, I immediately thought fracture. I asked about it.
It does seem like there's if you're a medical expert and you know what range of injuries this could be, the only thing that we're coming up with is some level of fracture or a bone bruise. I can't think, and I've not been able to uncover what other options there could be. Joel was smart and looked into the possibility of shin splints. Fun fact: shin splints involve your tibia, the front bone. I
think very, very important to say that is based on me being internet research and not me going to med school.
Yeah, Dr. Joel there. So we don't, again, I think you were kind of getting into it there. It's not necessarily overly alarming that they're being very tight-lipped on this. It's a little curious, someone from my standpoint, who's new on the beat, especially if, I didn't have you here to work with. I think it would be a little bit more surprising or alarming to me, but I know from talking to you and others on the beat, like this is kind of just what Shane and the organization does. And so that's what we have to go on. We certainly, neither Daniel nor Shane, I either confirmed or denied this sentiment, but a lot of us watching the game in the press box, and I think a lot of folks watching on TV too, felt like watching him run the couple times that we did get to see. There was a 4-yard run for a first down where he just had like loads and loads of green space to him without a defender within like 10 yards when he took off, maybe even more than that. That was in the first half. Watching that play, and then I believe, second half scramble, stepping up in the pocket and then just taking off for another first down that was for somewhere around like 13 or 14 yards. Neither of those looked like Daniel was totally full throttle, especially the one on the sideline for the first down, the shorter one. I mean, it felt like he could have gone for a couple more yards and still not incurred any sort of contact. He was very much jogging like the entire way, which again, like, if you can jog and know you'll pick up a first down, I can understand that. I also feel like if you know you can jog to get 4 yards without getting touched, or you can sprint and know you can get 8 without being touched, and you are comfortable with that, I kind of feel like you would do the latter. So that was
we've seen Jones do that.
Yeah, we have, and that one over the middle when he scrambled for 13, like that one in particular looked to the naked eye. Again, we were watching from a press box, but looked like he was running like 80%, and so that just, we'd maybe know more or have a better idea if we got to watch more of those. Those are the two instances that we've seen of Daniel. So those felt like they stood out to me. But Daniel told us in the locker room today, this is not something that he is thinking about when he's on the field, or at least he's telling us that he's not thinking about it. It doesn't seem like it's something that's super serious. Now, can we say definitively that it's something that doesn't affect him at all? I don't know that I would go that far, only because I don't think that we have a certain answer to that question.
Yeah, the biggest thing is they clearly don't think that it can, that it's going to get worse. Mm-hmm. Like that's my big takeaway is if they thought it could get worse, they wouldn't be so confident about putting him out there.
And maybe, frankly, maybe we'd be seeing some quarterback workouts or things like that to bolster the quarterback room, with Anthony Richardson continuing to heal up from his orbital bone injury and having a rookie in Riley Leonard on your active roster right now.
Yeah, I think the biggest indicator that they don't think it's a big deal is that Brett Rippett is still on the practice squad and wasn't activated.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think whenever it's the quarterback, you get your ears go up when it comes to an injury. I mean, he's wrapping it. He's been wrapping it or wearing a sleeve on it or whatever. So they are giving him some time. But I will say this: however limited he is, if he can scramble, they're still running boots with him. So there is some injury there, but you also kind of saw, like, a little bit like Shane Steichen has been saying, the playbook isn't compromised. He's right, but that's partially because they don't run Daniel Jones on purpose.
Yeah,
he runs scrambles, but if you take out sneaks, the number of designed runs that he's had this season is like less than 5. So whatever it is, it doesn't seem like it seems like something that they feel like he can play through without hurting further. I would say this. I would say, like, the way we're looking at it right now is, yes, you and I would like to know what it was. Also, we just kind of have a mention. Like, I have like I don't use a notebook the same way that like all other reporters used to, but I have a mental note that I'm like, at the end of the season, are we going to find out what this was? Because sometimes that, like, DeForest Buckner is famous for this. DeForest Buckner is famous for being hurt and not saying anything, and then at the end of the season, you find out that his right ring finger wasn't attached to the rest of his body for half the season. Like, that's kind of Buck's typical way of doing things. There's a piece of me wondering if we're going to have a little bit of that with Daniel Jones, or if we're not. So I don't know. It seems like he's going to play. That's a good thing because Riley Leonard's not ready. Brett Rippett is terrible. So you want Daniel Jones playing. But yeah, it is interesting that it's a fibula. It's interesting that it feels interesting that they're not saying anything, but in reality, this is kind of the way they operate. Like,
yeah,
fans probably don't like that, but Steichen is at the very least consistent. He does not tell us what injuries are until I don't. I'll just say it. I don't like it either. I would like to know what like. It's part of our job is to know what's going on. But this he is at the very least consistent about the way he handles injuries. Like when I asked him the fractured question, his answer was, I'm not going to tell you any of that stuff. If you're ever listening to a press conference and he says that to me or any of the other reporters who've been there a while, like that's his way of saying, like, come on, guys. Like, now we still have to ask, and that's why we do.
We have to get him to give us that answer because we need to know it for certain and make sure that he's not having a change of heart in how he approaches this.
But yeah, that's kind of his way of saying, like, this is the way I always handle things.
Yeah. Semi-related, our last thing we'll get to here before we step away for the Thanksgiving holiday on the Colts Cover 2 podcast. Semi-related, you wrote a great piece today on IndyStar.com looking at how the last three teams have approached blitzing the Colts and how it has caused a lot more havoc in the backfield and on drop back situations than it really had the first 8 weeks of the season, and kind of how the Colts are planning to respond to this or how they have addressed that publicly over the last couple of days. We are, of course, coming up on a game against the Houston Texans, against a line that I don't know, probably won't need to do a whole lot of blitzing to have opportunities to get to the quarterback with how great some of those defensive linemen there are in Houston. But what did you learn kind of sifting through some of those stats, and how do you think some of that might potentially play into what we see on the field on Sunday?
So I think two things stick out to me. If you look at the blitzes that they've had, that some of the issues they've had, you can't really pin down like a consistent development that plays into all of them. I think Jonathan Taylor, the last 2 weeks, has kind of been a little bit worse than he had been previously this season. I do think one of the consistent things, though, is that it felt like early in the season, whenever they got blitzed, and Daniel Jones, I believe, I don't want to look it up right now, but I believe he's fifth. He's faced the fifth most pressures of 5 or more of any quarterback in the NFL. So teams have been doing this all season, really. It felt like early in the season, every time they did, he made the right decision, whether it was throwing it to the right player, whether it was pulling it down and scrambling, whether it was, throwing it away. It just seemed like he always had the right feel for it. He hasn't had that feel. And I think one of the other things, and I don't know this, I don't know if it's, but I felt like this against the Steelers. Some of the stuff I watched against Kansas City felt a little bit the same way, although on those third downs when they were bringing blitzes, there were open guys both times. But it feels like they've maybe taken away some of the underneath stuff. Teams have maybe tried to take away some of like his normal answers to stuff, and so he's had to find something a little quicker. I think maybe that's part of the answer, is finding some other answers, like where his hot is, what he's going to do next. And then the other thing is just, I think they probably need their, and I thought Jim Bob Cooter maybe alluded to this, they might need to mess with their rules a little bit in terms of how they're handling blitzes, because it feels like when you see an unscouted look. So I'm super inside football now, so I need to explain myself. The way you handle a blitz is you watch, like they watch everything for years. They watch everything for years that a defensive coordinator has done. They try to categorize it all, and then they figure out what they're doing this year. And so you try to base blitz off of what they've been doing. Well, what's going to happen in these games, like Spagnuolo, is going to send something they haven't seen. Like it's going to come, the blitz might be the same, but it'll come from a different formation, that kind of thing. When that happens, ideally your rules, like whatever protection you've called, will take care of it, and Jones will be able to take care of the free rusher. I don't know if there's something that teams have figured out about their rules or whatever, like in terms of what their blitz calls are, but I think that's part of what they're working on, is trying to figure out if there's something that teams have isolated to come up with unscouted looks, and then give Jones better answers. I've seen this a couple places. Like people have said, like just run screens, just run draws. Number one, a draw against an all-out blitz is not going to work.
No.
Go watch the Chiefs' last 3 Chiefs third downs and then mentally hand the ball off in those situations. Not going to work. The screens, they have been running those. Taylor caught one in the late drives. Tyler Warren had a catch in the second half. Like, they have been running screens. And then the other one is run the ball more. The thing about run the ball more is, yes, that helps, but it helps more in terms of, do you get yards on first down or not? Because the Chiefs were blitzing on third down. Now, the Falcons do a little bit more of whatever, but the Chiefs were blitzing on third down. If you get to third down and long, you're not going to run the ball. Like, so you have to stay out of the third down and longs. That was part of it, was the first down. So there's my super in-depth football thoughts on it. I don't think it's as simple as we just call these plays that we would call if we were playing a video game. Like, I don't think any of NFL offense is that simple. But like, they have been running some of that stuff. The larger thing is when they have an answer, like Michael Pittman on the second drive of overtime on third down comes open over the middle. Jones has to hit it. He's got to stand in there, take that. He's got to hit it. He was hitting those throws earlier in the season. He hasn't been lately.
Yeah, there were a couple throws there on Sunday in the fourth quarter, or certainly in the second half, that it just felt like if he'd nailed on one of those, things start to feel a little bit different. You pick up one first down, depending on where they're starting from. Maybe you're already in field goal range. Maybe you're now at a point where you feel like you're in four down territory where you weren't before. Like, it definitely seemed like part of this, and I don't know that we'd seen a ton of it, at least instances that hadn't turned into interceptions, where he was just missing guys. There are 2 or 3 throws there, and that we just haven't seen that a whole lot. And some of that probably comes from rushing throws a little bit. There was one with Josh Downs that looked like there was, frankly, just a miscommunication. But it certainly was tough there on Sunday, where they were both getting a blitz and they had their wide receivers blanketed pretty well in man coverage. And when you're in those instances and you're having to get the ball out quick, you're losing the opportunity to utilize Alec Pierce, who, again, I know is someone who has worked on the entire route tree and is getting to be a very versatile receiver, but you're losing opportunities to hit him with a deep ball where he's probably strongest. And when all of those things are happening simultaneously, and then you've got your quarterback missing on some throws, missing on some windows, it's a little tough to overcome, as we saw there on Sunday. We will see how the Colts respond on Sunday. 1 p.m. game Eastern, Lucas Oil Stadium. Big one. I think we'll have, as we said, a little bit clearer picture on this team, their destiny, and how some of these races, both in the division and in the conference at large, will be shaking out come Sunday when we talk to you guys again. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, on the podcast platform of your choosing. We appreciate you guys for your support and for listening, and we will catch you guys next time on the Colts Cover 2 podcast.
If you're listening to this before you eat Thanksgiving, have a happy Thanksgiving. If you're listening to it after, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And also, I hope the stuffing was as good as it's supposed to be.